Hey, my name is Maya. I'm 27, and I think I might be living in a twisted version of one of those Hallmark movies, except instead of finding love in a small-town bakery, I've got my mom trying to emotionally blackmail me into paying for her new stepkid's college tuition. And the best part? According to her, I apparently owe her my entire life, even my job. She told me that word for word one night over dinner like it was a casual truth, right between bites of pasta. I wish I could say I was shocked, but if I'm being honest, things have been simmering for a while. Let me back up. I work in corporate communications for a pretty well-known tech company. It's not glamorous, but I busted my butt to get here. I did internships during college, worked part-time while studying full-time, and took on freelance gigs to pay rent while my friends partied. I come from a small town, and my mom, Dana, was a single parent for most of my childhood. My dad left when I was 5, and we never heard from him again. Growing up, it was just me and her, scraping by. Or at least that's the story she liked to tell people. The truth? My grandparents helped. A lot. My mom moved us into their house after the divorce and stayed there until I was in high school. They paid for groceries, bought me clothes, and even helped cover my school trips. But Dana would always rewrite history. According to her, she did it all alone, and I wouldn't understand how hard it was. That line became a sort of soundtrack to my childhood. It got old, fast. By the time I was a teenager, I had started to realize she was more invested in appearing like a struggling single mom than actually being one. When I got a scholarship to attend a university out of state, she freaked out. Not because she'd miss me, but because, as she said through gritted teeth, people will think I can't even keep my own daughter close. I left anyway. That was the start of the real divide. Fast forward to a year and a half ago. Dana met a guy online, Greg, a contractor from the next state over. I met him once before they got married and thought he was decent enough. A little too slick, but harmless. He had 2 kids from his previous marriage, Chloe, 18 at the time, and Dylan, 16. Dana went from zero to stepmom overnight, and suddenly it was all about the new family. I lived 2 hours away, so I was mostly spared from the day-to-day, but she called constantly with updates about Chloe's senior year or how Dylan needed a male influence and how wonderful it was to have a full house. I tried to be happy for her. Truly. I even sent a gift when they bought a bigger home together, though I noticed Greg's name was the only one on the deed. But it was clear where her attention had shifted. Calls to me became less frequent unless she needed something. Then last October, everything changed. I had just landed a major promotion at work. It was a huge moment. I'd been gunning for that spot for over a year, and it came with a salary bump that meant I could finally move out of my shared apartment and into my own place. I called Dana, excited, expecting at least a congratulations. Instead, I got, wow, must be nice. You wouldn't even have that job if it weren't for me. I actually laughed at first, thinking she was joking. But she was dead serious. I raised you, she said. Don't act like you built your life from scratch. I was too stunned to respond, so I mumbled something about needing to run and hung up. The next day, she called again. This time, she got to the point. So, she said, Chloe's starting college soon, and we're a little tight on money with the house and everything. I was thinking you make more than enough now. Maybe you could help cover her tuition for the first year. I honestly thought I'd misheard her. She went on, as if we were discussing borrowing a sweater. It's not like you've got a family to support. And think about it. This is your sister. No, I said flatly. There was silence, and then that dangerous tone she always used when she felt slighted. Maya, after everything I've done for you, you've done nothing for me, I snapped. My grandparents raised me. You were just there. Click. She hung up. For the next week, I got texts ranging from guilt-tripping. I'm so disappointed in who you've become to passive-aggressive. Just so you know, Chloe cried when I told her you said no. I ignored them all. But then she escalated. A few days later, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, with Chloe in tow. I opened the door in sweatpants and a face mask, completely unprepared, and there they were. Dana barged in like she owned the place, Chloe trailing behind with big, watery eyes. Dana launched into this dramatic monologue about family responsibility and giving back. She even tried to appeal to my ego, saying, "Wouldn't it feel good to say you helped your sister become a doctor?" "She's not my sister," I said. "She's your husband's kid. You've been married for what, 7 months?" That's when Chloe cried. Legit tears. And I'll admit, I felt bad. But not bad enough to cave. Dana stormed out, dragging Chloe with her, and I didn't hear from her for a while. I thought maybe that was it. I hoped. Then, 3 months later, just last week, I woke up to loud banging on my door. I live in a quiet apartment complex, so it startled me. I threw on a hoodie and opened the door cautiously. It was Chloe. Red-faced, screaming, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "You ruined everything," she shouted before I could even say hello. She was shaking, full-on trembling with rage. I tried to calm her down, but she kept yelling. "We lost the house. My dad had to take out a loan, and it wasn't enough, and now we're moving back into a tiny apartment, and it's your fault." I blinked at her. "What? You were supposed to help. If you had just paid for tuition, we wouldn't be in this mess." I couldn't even process it. They lost the house? Greg took out a loan? And somehow, I was the villain? That's when she said it. "I hope you're happy, Maya. You destroyed our lives." I stood there, barefoot on my doormat, with Chloe's voice ringing in my ears. "You destroyed our lives." I was still half asleep, not even fully sure this wasn't some weird anxiety dream. But no, this was real. She was standing right in front of me, eyes bloodshot, arms clenched at her sides like she wanted to swing at me. I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding in my chest, not out of fear, but from the shock. From the sheer absurdity of it all. This girl, who I had met a handful of times, who was legally an adult, was screaming at me like I had pulled the rug out from under her entire world. "I'm sorry your family is struggling," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But you need to leave." That didn't go over well. "Oh my God, you're so selfish," she shrieked, voice cracking. "My dad is depressed, my mom's a wreck, and all you care about is your stupid job and your little apartment." I closed the door. Not slammed. Not dramatically. Just closed it. I stood there, hands still on the knob, and listened as she screamed outside for another 30 seconds before storming off. I waited until I couldn't hear her footsteps anymore, then locked the door and slid to the floor. For a while, I just sat there in silence. It wasn't guilt I felt. It was grief. Not for Chloe. Not for the house. But for the final, undeniable proof that I was no longer part of their family. If I ever had been. Later that day, I got a call from Greg. First one I'd ever received from him directly. I debated answering it for a good 5 minutes. Curiosity won. "Maya," he started. His voice was calm, eerily calm. "I heard you slam the door in Chloe's face this morning." "Nope," I said, flatly. "I closed it. After she screamed at me for ruining her life." He sighed, like I was a burden. "Look, I'm not here to argue. I just think you need to understand what this decision has done to us." I stayed quiet. "She was counting on that tuition," he continued. "We all were. We stretched our budget assuming you'd help out. And now we're behind on the mortgage, and the banks come knocking. Why would you stretch your budget assuming money that was never promised?" I asked. There was a pause. "Dana said you'd come around." "Of course she did." He launched into this whole spiel about familial duty and investing in the next generation, and how Chloe had dreamed of going to the same university I had. He kept using the word "we," like I was part of their financial plan. Like I was another parent, a third adult in their household. I finally cut him off. "Greg, I'm not your wife. I'm not Chloe's mom. I didn't agree to any of this. I'm not responsible for decisions you and Dana made. I've been out here building my life on my own. You don't get to put your debts on me." He didn't argue. He just said, "You'll regret this," and hung up. That's when I knew things were going to get worse. A week passed. Then another. I thought maybe they'd finally backed off. But then weird things started happening. The leasing office at my apartment complex emailed me, saying someone had called pretending to be me, asking about my rent and when it was due. The receptionist said the caller gave my full name and birth date but couldn't answer the security question, so they didn't give anything out, but still, it rattled me. A few days later, I got a notification that someone had tried to reset the password to my student loan account. Then a credit card I hadn't used in over a year had a charge for $19.99 for a streaming service I didn't subscribe to. It was all small stuff, but it added up. They were trying to get into my personal information. I filed a police report, froze my credit, changed all my passwords. I didn't have hard proof it was them, but I knew. It had Dana written all over it, clumsy, reckless, entitled. I even texted her. "Me. If you or anyone associated with you tries to access my accounts again, I will press charges." No response. Instead, a day later, I got an email from Chloe. A long one. It started sweet. Said she understood that things had gotten out of hand, that she was emotional and shouldn't have come over. Then came the twist. She said she was writing a personal essay for a scholarship about family and perseverance, and wanted to include our complicated but inspiring relationship. She attached a draft. It was full of lies. She wrote about how I supported her dreams and paid her first semester tuition out of sisterly love, that I'd guided her through the college application process and even helped her pick out her dorm essentials. It read like a fictional memoir, like a fantasy version of the last year. She even called me her biggest role model. At the end, she added, "Please say it's okay for me to submit this. The deadline's soon, and it could really help my future." I stared at the email for a long time. Then I realized this wasn't an essay. It was bait. If I said yes, I'd be validating their story. If I said no, they'd say I was heartless all over again. Either way, they were rewriting history to make me the villain or the hero, whatever worked better for them at the time. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't family tension. This was manipulation. This was a campaign. They weren't done with me. But they also didn't realize something about me. I keep everything. Every message. Every receipt. Every voicemail. And for the last several months, I've been documenting all of it without even meaning to. And that's when the plan started to form. After reading Chloe's email, I didn't reply. I didn't yell. I didn't even warn her. I just sat there, feeling this eerie kind of calm settle over me. You know when something finally clicks? That moment when you stop second-guessing yourself? That was it for me. For months, I had questioned whether I was overreacting. I'd run the conversations back in my head. Was I too harsh? Should I have helped more? Did I owe Dana anything after all? But this email sealed it. I wasn't the problem. They were. So, I did what I do best. I documented. I took screenshots of everything from Dana's early text trying to guilt-trip me, to Greg's voicemail, to Chloe's scholarship essay. I backed up my voicemails, saved copies of my leasing office emails, and pulled my credit reports for the past 2 months. I even started a spreadsheet to keep track of the timeline. Every single weird charge, shady message, and invasion of privacy went in there. But I wasn't doing this just to keep myself organized. I was planning something bigger, and I knew exactly where to start. Back when I first got hired at my company, they assigned a mentor to help me transition. Her name's Valerie, and she's not only insanely good at her job, she also loves a good revenge story. We'd stayed close over the years, meeting for coffee every few months. Valerie's the kind of person who knows a guy for anything. Lawyers, PR people, you name it. So I sent her a text, quick question. You still know that attorney who helped you with your mom's estate mess? Valerie texted, you okay? I replied, not really. Can I call you? We met for coffee the next morning. I laid it all out for her, the blackmail, the manipulation, the stalking, and now the fake essay. Valerie didn't even blink. She just sipped her espresso and said, you want a cease and desist letter, or do you want to make this hurt? That was the moment the story really started to turn. We worked together over the next few days. She introduced me to her attorney friend, who helped me put together a formal letter to Dana and Greg outlining everything they'd done, the harassment, the identity theft attempts, the emotional distress, and the false statements. It was dry, legal, and terrifying in its tone. I didn't need it to do anything yet. I just needed them to know I had teeth. I emailed the letter to them. No subject line. No message. Just the attachment. A few hours later, Dana called. I didn't answer. Then she texted, you're taking this too far. This is family. We're going through a hard time, and this is how you treat us? You used to be so grateful. What happened to you? I didn't respond. I just waited. And then things got very interesting. About 3 days after I sent the letter, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to it. It was Chloe. Her voice was quiet, like she was trying not to be overheard. She said she was sorry, that things had gotten out of hand, that she didn't mean to scare me or cause trouble, and she was just so stressed out about school and money and life. But the part that caught my attention? I didn't know my dad took out a loan in your name, she said, almost whispering. I didn't even know until Mom told me after your email. I'm so sorry, Maya. I never wanted any of this to happen. My stomach dropped. A loan? In my name? I immediately pulled up my credit report again. Nothing new showed up yet. But now I had confirmation that they were trying to commit fraud. And this wasn't just a theory anymore. Chloe had unknowingly admitted it on a voicemail. The next day, I called the lawyer Valerie had connected me with and explained everything. He advised me to go straight to the police with the voicemail and my documentation. And I did. I filed a full report, gave them every screenshot, email, bank notification, everything I had. The officer I spoke with was sympathetic but stern. "You're not the first person I've seen in this situation," he said. "Family can be the worst offenders because they think they're entitled to everything you have." Still, even as I took action, I couldn't stop thinking about Chloe's message. I wanted to believe she was just caught in the middle, manipulated by her parents, pushed into something she didn't fully understand. But there was a part of me, an ugly part one hated to acknowledge, that didn't trust her at all. Because even after everything, even after she found out about the loan, she didn't warn me. She didn't come clean. She just waited until I had already made a move. And that brings me to the real turning point. About a week after filing the report, I got an official notice in the mail. A subpoena. I wasn't being sued, but I was being called as a witness in a pending case involving suspected fraudulent financial activity. The investigation had moved quickly once I submitted the voicemail. They traced a few suspicious applications back to an IP address registered under Dana's home internet. I didn't have all the details yet, but I knew enough to understand what was coming. And then, one morning before work, I saw it. An email from Chloe. Subject line: "Please, don't let them take everything." I couldn't bring myself to open it. Not yet. Because the truth is, I don't know how this ends. I don't know if I want them to be punished, or if I just want them gone. I don't know if Chloe deserves a second chance, or if she was always just playing a part. And I don't know what kind of daughter, sister, or stranger I'm supposed to be now. But I do know this. I'm done playing the villain in their story. They made me the bad guy. Now they're about to meet the real one. I opened Chloe's email that night. I waited until I was home, until I had changed into sweatpants, lit a candle, and braced myself. There was no way I was going to read this half-distracted between meetings or let it catch me off guard. The email was long, desperate, filled with phrases like, "I didn't know what they were doing," and "I was scared," and "I thought maybe you wouldn't even notice." She tried to draw a line between herself and her parents, painting herself as just another victim of Dana's manipulation. She said she didn't want to lose her chance at school, that she had been working hard despite everything, and she begged me not to ruin what's left of her future. Then, the kicker. She asked me to withdraw the police report. Not because it was false, but because, and I quote, "You got your point across." They're scared now. That should be enough. That was the moment the switch flipped. Again, I had tried being quiet. I had tried being polite. I had given them chance after chance, even when they showed me they didn't deserve it. And now, after fraud, stalking, gaslighting, and attempting to rewrite my entire existence as some fairy god sister, she wanted me to just let it go. No, I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to the detective handling my case. I attached the voicemail again. I even called to confirm they had received everything and let them know I was fully willing to testify in court if it came to that. I wasn't bluffing anymore. I wasn't scared of burning bridges that were already in flames. I wanted closure. Within a few weeks, things moved quickly. Faster than I expected, honestly. Turns out, Dana had not only tried to open one loan in my name. She had tried 3. One got flagged immediately, one was denied, and one was approved. But fortunately, the funds hadn't been disbursed yet when I filed my report. Thanks to the evidence and timing, the bank froze the account before any real damage was done. But here's where it gets wild. Greg had also applied for a personal loan using his mother's name, with Dana listed as a cosigner. So while they were busy playing the "we're struggling and Maya abandoned us" card, they were also committing fraud all around them like it was a side hustle. Chloe may not have been directly involved in the paperwork, but she knew more than she let on. And the authorities saw it that way, too. Dana was arrested for identity theft, attempted fraud, and a few other charges I won't pretend to understand the legal jargon for. Greg got hit with conspiracy and credit fraud. And Chloe? She wasn't arrested, but the university she'd been accepted to rescinded her offer when they learned about the investigation. Turns out, she had submitted that fake essay to multiple scholarships. One of the boards flagged it as plagiarized because it used quotes from an actual Reddit post I had made months earlier, word for word. Poetic, really. The fallout was immediate. I didn't hear from Dana or Greg again. Not directly, at least. They were too busy dealing with court appearances and legal fees. My lawyer helped me file for a restraining order, just to be safe, and I got alerts set up on all my financial accounts in case anyone tried anything again. As for Chloe, she sent me one last email. Just one line. "You ruined everything." I didn't reply. Because here's the truth, and I want this part to be clear. I didn't ruin anything. I protected myself. I set boundaries. I stopped pretending that family meant sacrificing your peace, your money, your safety, just so someone else could avoid the consequences of their own behavior. I stopped being their scapegoat, their ATM, their silent audience. I didn't ruin their lives. They did that all by themselves. And when I walk into my new apartment now, the one I got with my money, from my job, after my hard work, I don't feel guilt. I feel peace. Because for the first time in my life, I chose me. And I didn't look back.